tariffs have come in. I haven't bought anything that I think, anyway, has been affected by tariffs. In fact, tariffs hit on Wednesday. I was Temu shopping on Friday.
Okay.
And my cart was still, I think I still had about 421 items in there, and it cost me about $1.75.
400.
Yeah.
How much do you get off this place?
Temu's amazing.
Huh.
You can get everything on Temu for nothing.
Really?
It's amazing.
I have a few things I need. I'll give you my list.
Definitely. That's a good idea. So what are people buying, and should they even be buying that? Joining us right now is our Valley economist and the president of Rounds Consulting, Jim Rounds. Jim, thanks so much. I know it's been a busy week for you with everybody wanting your attention and your intellect when it comes to these tariffs. I'm a little bit, I was warning Joe, we have to just sort of take a time out because we haven't actually been hit by tariffs yet. I know the tariffs have gone into effect, but it's not like I bought a car this weekend and I got hit by tariffs, right? I mean, at some point we're gonna feel the effect, but maybe we take a bit of a breather right now. Is it sage advice, or should I just be freaking out like everybody else?
Well, I don't know. I want to know what you're buying on Temu. That's a pretty large volume.
It's a lot of stuff. It's good.
That's a lot of stuff, man. When we know that the prices are going up, you don't necessarily have to wait until the tariffs take effect. Prices are going to start to go up just because people know that they're going up. And keep in mind, even things that aren't being impacted by the tariffs, if there's a good that's being produced in the U.S., if the price of a competitor is going to go up, why wouldn't you raise your prices as well? So I think we're going to start to see some of these price increases a little bit more stealth coming in before some of these actually take effect.
Jim, when are we going to see those prices come in and take effect? And let's talk about something simple. I've seen toothpaste is something that could cost us more. Let's just talk, toothpaste. When are we going to see the price go up, and how much? If I'm paying, $3 for the cheap toothpaste right now to $10, the Chris Merrill toothpaste. He likes to have really pearly whites.
Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much is the toothpaste going to cost in addition to what it already is costing me?
Well, if it's Chris's designer toothpaste, It might be a little bit more. Just a regular Crest or something like that.
Chris.
I would say about 75%, maybe a little bit more of the tariff value is going to get passed on to the consumer. So you see something going up by 20%, expect to pay maybe 15% of that on our end. And then, of course, the importing company and then the exporter will end up having to eat the rest of it. But we're going to pay at least 3/4 of it.
So what are the things that we're going to get hit with the worst? And I think this is really where the brass tacks are, because I'm not buying a car this year. So I'm not really worried about the car price. I mean, I'm worried generally for the economy, but I'm not worried about the car prices. I went to Costco last weekend, so I got a stockpile of things. How much is this going to cost me, and what are the things that I can do to avoid some of that short-term pain?
Just kind of in general, I did read one report where somebody took the time to try to do what a typical family would pay. And I think they had upward around $5,000 extra a year. It seemed kind of like a lot because people can make adjustments. There's substitute items. When we were talking about the price of eggs going up so much, well, some people just ate fewer eggs and decided to eat something else. So it kind of depends on what the alternatives are. And even if you're not looking for a car, you might still need parts because you might need to maintain it. So there'll be some costs that creep up on you. But yeah, my bigger fear is we're going to be having these huge price increases on the big ticket items eventually, but that's also going to translate, again, why would anybody not raise their prices if they're producing something domestically? You're going to raise your prices to the amount of your competitor minus $1. If somebody's looking for the lowest value. So we're going to be paying for a lot of this stuff regardless. Economics kind of evens everything out.
Talking with Jim Rounds, Valley economist and president of Rounds Consulting. So, Jim, I walk into the grocery store in, let's say, a month. What percentage of goods can I expect to pay more for, either as a result of tariffs or as a result of other things getting tariffed, so those other companies decide to raise the price too? Are we talking half, 75%?
I don't know if it's going to go up that much. I mean, even if things went up by 10%, remember what inflation was like when it was at just 10%. That was pretty significant. So it doesn't take 25, 30%, the amount of the tariffs that we're talking about to really have an impact. And in some cases, we're going to see a bigger increase in food costs. But like I said before, it's coming at a time where we're already paying relatively high prices. So people are going to have to adjust at some point, or we're going to have to make more money. So we either lower prices or we make more money. But I feel like we're also weakening the broader economy pretty significantly. We have these high rates of inflation again, and uncertainty. It's this uncertainty. If they followed the original hints that they were going to do with the tariffs, we wouldn't have seen the shock in the stock market. But they kind of under hinted and over delivered in terms of the tariffs. Now we're not sure what's going to happen, and that's why we're having such an impact on the stock market. But even if you're not going to use your stock market money, if that's for retirement, maybe you're going to feel less wealthy, and so you're going to spend less money, and that's going to have an impact on the economy as well. This thing just has branches out to so many different things.
So I guess my question is, and perhaps I phrased it poorly there, if I'm not buying a car, I'm not buying a television, but I am buying soap, toothpaste, avocados, things like that, and I can do without some of those. At the grocery store, of the 20 to 30 items I pick up, how many can I expect to see a price increase of those items?
That's a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think I'd want to go above maybe 10%, and we're kind of guessing here because we just don't know, and everybody buys different basket of goods. Like we were talking about, Chris is more upscale and he buys more stuff, but the rest of us might be a little bit more moderate, might be a little bit more cautious with our spending going forward.
All right. Well, as long as first-class airfare doesn't go up, then I'm going to be safe. I wanted to follow up Jim Rounds, our Valley economist and president of Rounds Consulting. I wanted to follow up on something you just talked about when it comes to keeping up with those prices, and that has to do with wages. That is next. Jim Rounds, our Valley economist and president of Rounds Consulting. Jim, you were talking about how American companies, and I think this is so astute, you were talking about how American companies, if they see the prices of other goods produced elsewhere are going up, they are going to then increase their prices. So hypothetically speaking, let's say you've got Apple, and Apple moves all of their stuff stateside, and they're competing against Samsung. So I got an iPhone, and I got a Samsung Galaxy. The Galaxy is hit with tariffs, and now that Galaxy is going to cost $2,000. My iPhone was $1,200, but now Apple says, yeah, you know what? Why don't we just make it $1,900? Now we're competing, and we're still cheaper. So, of course, they're going to raise their prices. That's how capitalism works. You get what you can out of it, right? Supply, demand, cost of doing business, all that kind of thing. What does Apple do with that money? They throw that in their pockets, or does that translate into wages that are then going to be able to be used to spend on other American products that have just gone up with inflation?
Oh, that's profit. I mean, even when we had the high rates of inflation, we saw record profits by a lot of corporations. So not everything. I always talk about how economics always evens things out. It doesn't even things out in a fair way on occasion. And some of the Apple products, I don't think they're going to be making everything that goes into, say, a phone or your earbuds or whatever, are going to still be made within the U.S. if they decided to shift. And then another question is, how much of your mega corporation do you change when you might see a complete reversal of what's happening within the next 4 years? We just don't know. And so, how much of these CEOs are willing to, bank on this stuff continuing for a really long time? Just another area of uncertainty.
Jim, when are we going to see the market stabilize? Last week it was down and down. This week so far it was down, then up today, then back down. How long is it going to be like this?
Yeah, so I was looking into this a lot this morning, and so my financial advisor always thinks that it's a good time to get back in. Although we did warn me when things were about to hit to keep some money parked on the sidelines, which we've been doing for a little while. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Dow 36,000 and S&P 4,800, which is a 20% reduction. If you look at the longer term trend, we were due for about 10% correction anyways. And so I'm not as spooked about these numbers because we're buying shares at a cheaper rate right now. And if you're close to retirement, you probably had a more conservative portfolio anyways. But I still feel like we have a little ways to go because I don't feel like we're being very strategic with the messaging. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of heavy duty ranting coming out of Washington. And it may be a good thing in the end. If they end up resolving all of these tariff issues and we go from having high tariffs on both ends for maybe a couple of months to down to zero, that would be great. I have some friends that think it's not going to take very long. I think it's going to take years before all this stuff works its way through because nothing's that easy. But I don't know. 20% is my threshold for where I'm going to jump back in.
Jim Rounds, Valley economist and president of Rounds Consulting. Keep going with what you were just saying about your friends and their concern. You know, this might all pan out in the next few months. It seems to me that the damage has already been done. In the same way that you just said that how many companies are going to make massive changes if things might go back in the next 4 years? You know, they've spent years offshoring different things, and all of a sudden you're going to bring them onshore when we have a new president that could change everything up. How much are they going to invest? How much are other countries going to rely on the United States now to be the partner that we've been in the past? If I am Samsung, for instance, I'm a little bit concerned with this U.S. market because 4 years could have President Newsom. Yeah. And then 4 years after that, we could have President Vance, which means we're back and forth. If I'm Samsung or if I'm South Korea, I'm looking at trying to get Samsung into the Chinese market, into the Japanese market, into the German market, more than I'm worried about the United States.
Yeah, well, if it's President Newsom, my forecast is going way down. So we'll have to have a different show about that. Way down. Well, we're already seeing the Canadians talking about teaming up with the British on how they're not going to rely on the U.S. as much anymore. But that might just be their way of trying to talk tough. It just doesn't come out sounding as tough. We seem to do a really good job of talking tough, and it sounds ruthless. So we might be scaring the others as a little bit more than they're scaring us. But I feel like our threshold for this pain is not quite as severe as some others because we have a lot of people supporting the president and they believe in him that this is going to work out in the end. So I think people are being a little bit more open to what's happening than maybe they should be.
Jim Rounds, president of Rounds Consulting and a Valley economist. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.